Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. I'm Sue, and you've just stepped into Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Every week, I'll introduce you to a friend of mine, a remarkable entrepreneur who's not just changing the world, but also harnessing a secret weapon, time outdoors. Together, we'll dive into their journey, unpack invaluable business advice, and discover why embracing the wild is not just good for the soul, but also a goldmine for inspiration and innovation. Ready to uncover the secret that's boosting bottom lines and fueling joy? Hit subscribe and join us in the wild. Ladies and gentlemen, this one's really fun. It's not every time that I get to introduce a guest who I've known for like 14, 17 years, something like
somewhere
that.
around there. Yeah.
It's a long time. But this is one of those times that I'm so excited. And this is so wild because I met Jackie Banas like, what was it, 2007, 8, something like this, right?
Yep.
A long time ago. And she was doing something completely different. I was just doing the writing. And we reconnected this year and I found out she owns a KOA campsite. This is insane. I never saw this coming. I don't know if she did, but
Nope.
This is so cool. It's gonna be so fun. So like we've been reconnecting. I'm like, oh my gosh, teach me everything. She's done very well. I'm really delighted to introduce to you. She is really inspiring, really, really smart with business, and she's an awesome person. So welcome to the show. I'm really glad you're here, Jackie. This is going to be fun.
Thank you.
So, all right, what's been up for the last 17?
Yeah, right.
We did have that catch up, so that's cool. But all right, let's dive into like who are you serving and what problem are you solving for them?
Yeah. So I bought the campground 10 years ago, and that was one of my sort of first real things I needed to learn was how do I market this specific campground? How do I target a specific customer? How do I make sure that I'm serving the needs of the customers? So I actually took a course back then called B School. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I took a course, and one of the activities during the course really has you sit down and analyze who you want your ideal customer to be. And so for me, it was the camping mom. The mom who has a family that loves camping, but she's tired. She's not getting a lot of rest herself. So yeah, she's planning these camping trips, but they're exhausting her.
Yes.
Because she has to plan them, organize them, make sure she's got the budget for them, and then trying to entertain these little kids when they're there. So when I bought the campground, I had a 3-year-old and a almost 1-year-old.
Oh my.
And so I really did understand what a mom going through trying to camp, and you're constantly having to entertain your little kids, and it's exhausting, running around the playground after them, running here, running there. And so I was like, okay, so what can we do for those moms specifically? So my campground became about them. So we started adding, over the 10 years, we've upgraded our playground area, added jumping pillows. We make sure that we keep our pool heated to over 84 degrees because of little kids.
And the moms who have to get in there with them.
But it's not just that. It's like, as a mom, you have to get them dressed in their little swim diapers, and then you got to put their swimsuits on, and then you get them in the pool, and now they're blue-lipped within like a minute, and you're like, why did I do this? Right? Yeah, it's like, oh my God, now you've got this freezing kid that you're like, I got myself dressed into a swimsuit, I got them dressed into everything. And so I was focused on like, how do I make sure that each experience was fulfilling and not exhausting? How do we provide the rest and the fun and the family experiences without the hard work that moms all do? So how can we help ease some of the hard work for the moms? And so having playgrounds that were safe for kids, that you didn't need to have a parent walking behind them. Oh, they're going to fall. Having things like that. We had originally started off with one jumping pillow. I don't know if you're familiar with what a jumping pillow is.
No, what is a jumping pillow?
So basically, a jumping pillow is a huge tarp. They're designed for this. So it's a very huge tarp. And they're tethered down into the ground. So we dig into the ground a trench, and we tether them down. and then you run a tube underneath it with a pump that blows air. So they end up being like a trampoline, but there's no edges for them to fall off. It literally just ends up being like a pillow.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
I kind of want one.
They're crazy amazing. But so we had put one in our very first year. We had campers say that they loved our campground. It was so calm and relaxing, but that the kids really liked going elsewhere because they had this jumping pillow. So I was like, okay, jumping pillow it is. I got it. I got it. So we put the jumping pillow in, and then my own kids, both being under 5, could not go on the big jumping pillow when all the other kids were there because they were too scared or they were getting bounced around. So then we put in a little jumping pillow for 5-year-olds and under.
Oh.
So things like that. That was the when I was watching my own kids experiencing things, and I'm walking around the campground with my own kids, I'm like, this needs to change. This needs to be different, you know? And so that's how I sort of start looking to solve problems. But the main problem I'm looking to solve is, how do I help a mom rest?
Oh, that is so great. Like, I would not have even, I mean, maybe going through a course, you come up with that, but it's brilliant. And you were that person, which is, I mean, now they're grown, but it's like, you know, you were that person, which makes it so much easier to go, oh, well, yeah, this, you know, that's so smart. And then to be able to, you built these things. So now you might not think of them, you know, if you weren't being mindful of it.
No, because now I've got a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Right.
You know,
now you're thinking about them. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. If they're cold, I'm like, just go get a towel.
Go get them checked. But that is so smart, because, you know, like, you were able to take action when you had that. You built things that are physical, so you can't forget now, like, oh, jumping, why is the jumping pillow here? This is why, you know?
Exactly.
So smart. And then what's the response been? They must, I know, like, all right, you brag a little bit, please, because this is crazy good.
So, I would say, so the first year we bought the campground, we took over in April. So 2015, and basically the campground was whatever reservations I'd had at that point. There wasn't a lot of, for one, I didn't know marketing. I didn't know how to send out an email. Like, I mean, I could email people, but I didn't know how to use it for mass emailing. We just barely were getting our social media business pages going and things like that. So I was learning a lot of that stuff. But so the year 2015 was basically based on the old campers, people that already had known the campground and, you know, were familiar with the campground. And so we then, that winter after the first year, spent a lot of time. I was literally Facebook Live posts and all sorts of things, and trying to really get my messaging of, like, I know who I want camping here, families with young kids. And how do I get that out to them? So we did, and we did increase the occupancy in the campground from being, I'd say the long weekends were always full. You know, every campground in Canada, long weekends are going to be full, but the rest of our weekends were maybe about half full in our occupancy. We went from that to being full almost every weekend of the whole summer, other than one in May, 1 or 2 in September, but really dramatically more than half grow the occupancy. So I would say that it worked well. Decided that we were going to really target a specific person, and that's who we marketed to. Like, everything I wrote to this mom that was tired, you know.
And you were her, so it's so easy. It's like,
exactly.
They say, you know, the best.
Was.
Right. They say the best way to write an email is, like, you have a picture of the person and you give them a name and all that, but all you had to do is, here's a mirror. Like,
yes, that's really, for me, that was like lucky, because that's my product. We were camping family, you know, my husband at the time, we've since been divorced, but at the time when we were married and 2 young kids, we spent a lot of time. He was from California, and before we bought the campground, wanted to spend our winters down there. So we had a little motor home and whatever. And so I knew what camping was like, you know.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. And so to go, like, guys, you know, switching your occupancy rate like that, growing it that is the task, you know, like, when you're doing this, I mean, anything hospitality,
empty
that's
sites
huge.
Mean lost money. So how do I get my sites filled, you know?
Right. Yeah. And then you want it with people who are going to be happy and delighted and give great reviews and come back and all, you know, and it's like, that's a lot, you know. Oh my gosh, that's That is so, so smart. Now, when I knew you, you were not doing this.
I was not. No, no.
How did you like talk through a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so I started my sort of working career in real estate. I worked at like reception basically and worked in deal secretary at a real estate office. And then I went back to school and got into law. So then I did real estate law. Um, but the law firm that I worked at was mortgage enforcement. So when people can't pay their mortgages, then we did power of sale and took their houses.
Fun.
So after 5 years of that, I actually found, like, I've always been a very high energy, happy, loving, trusting, kind of person. And after 5 years of working in the mortgage enforcement, I'd become very jaded because so many people were constantly talking about the negative stuff that had happened in their life to cause them to not be able to pay their mortgages. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, it was so hard to be like, I'm really sorry that your kid has cancer and you've been at the hospital with him for the last 4 months. I still have to take your house away, So that was really, really hard, to the feeling sad for people, that I actually had this like shift in my mind that I started convincing myself all of them were lying. Because it was easier to believe they were lying to me, which still sucked, but it was easier to believe that than to actually think I still have to take your house away and you've had this horrible thing happening to you.
Yeah.
And so I then started having this jaded perspective of all humanity. Like everywhere I was going, even my friends, I'm like, oh no, everybody's a liar. And I was like, okay, I do not like this mindset. I do not like what's happening to me here. So I decided to start looking elsewhere. I was still working at the time because I couldn't afford to quit. I wasn't independently wealthy, so I couldn't afford to quit at the time, but I did start thinking about businesses and doing things on my own, not being dependent on somebody else's and working my ass off for somebody else to profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started my entrepreneurial journey sort of in network marketing, direct selling businesses. So I started with a company. It was a health company, vitamins and stuff. And then just started changing my mindset, learning a lot, taking personal development seminars, which is where you and I met. And that really did change. That really helped my life. And then the campground came along because of the lifestyle we had of I was working sales and business that I could do from anywhere. And Jason being from California, we had spent some winters going down there in our motorhome, and we stopped at a KOA one time, and there was a mom there with two very young kids that I was taking my young kid out to the playground, and we were just talking, and I was like, this sounds like an amazing lifestyle for us, And she was like, oh, it's great. We love it, blah, blah, blah. And so I went back to the motorhome from the playground and said to Jason, I think we're supposed to buy a KOA. And he was like, that's funny. I had that thought on our way down to California. Like, I just didn't bring it up because I thought that must be crazy, And so we felt okay, since the two of us both had the same thought on two separate occasions, not influencing one another.
Right.
We really just trusted that was whatever you want to say. The universe said it. I would say God. It was a God thing. But whatever other people are comfortable with. And so we then put our heads together on how do we make this goal happen.
Yeah, because that's not an easy thing.
No,
I mean, nobody does this, right?
Well,
some people do it, right?
Campgrounds are very tricky because a lot of, especially in Canada, I don't know about the States, but in Canada, the banks do not want to fund a campground. It's not easy to sell a campground. Right. Nobody knows how to run a campground. So it's not like the banks could be like, oh, well, we'll just put a manager in place.
We'll just take it back, right?
No, they don't want a campground back. So they were trying to say that we had to come up with 50% of a down payment to buy it. And I'm like, well, campgrounds, back then, even now they're crazy more expensive, but back then, over $1 million we're looking at these campgrounds. And I'm like, I don't have any money. I'm living in my parents' basement. I don't, I've got a brand new baby, because of the sales, I had quit my law job. So I was, now I'm just dependent on the amount of money I'm making from my own company. Right. And so it was tricky. But my uncle was my aunt had passed away and my uncle didn't want to live in their condo anymore. And so he sold the condo and basically just said, give Jackie and Jason the money from the condo and they can start a business with it.
That is so amazing.
Yeah,
like you
so
could not have
totally,
seen that coming, you
no,
know?
no way that we thought that would ever happen. It was complete, like I thought I was going to have to, work hard on the corner to try and,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sell a kidney or something, right?
Exactly. I'm going to have to, maybe sell my kid or who knows, but yeah, we ended up getting the money from my uncle as a blessing, and again, that to us just reinforced that this was God's plan. Because nobody just gives you that kind of money. Now, also managed to find a bank which was in the States, but a bank that had said they would do it for a lot less of a down payment. So we didn't need the 50%. So all those things together combined, we got approved for the mortgage and the money given to us, and then we found a campground where the old owners they had not thought about selling. And they were like, they knew they didn't want to work it forever. So at some point they were going to sell, but they thought maybe their kids would take over it. But all three of their adult kids had said no, literally like a week before my mom had come in and was like, oh, are you looking to sell by any chance? And they were like, actually, maybe we will. If we've got buyers, we'll be sellers. And so within, a couple of months of back and forth negotiations, we bought a campground.
It's amazing. Like the night that this closed, you must have been like, we own a campground.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
And then starting to learn, because immediately the moment the email transferred and I had control of it, my inbox is like, oh, a reservation came in. Oh, another one came in, right? It's April. People in Canada in April are booking reservations. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know how the software works. I don't know how to confirm these reservations. I don't know how to do anything, So yeah, it was crazy.
These people are going to show up.
Yeah. And so we were planning on opening, we bought it on the 15th of April and we opened the 28th or 9th or whatever that Friday was right before May 1st. So we had to move and learn. And funny enough, I got in a car accident during that 2 weeks. Oh, my cat just knocked something off the table. But yeah, and I got in a car accident. So now I'm literally trying to, luckily it wasn't horrible, but I was trying to then figure out how to recover. I was in major physical pain from the the whiplash and the belt. So in 2 weeks, I'm learning how to pack, move, figure out a campground, and now be ready for open. So yeah,
you got two babies, right?
And two babies. Yeah, yeah.
That's insane.
Luckily, I have really great parents that were very, very involved in helping. So.
Thank goodness, because that's a lot.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Now that I think about it, 10 years ago, I barely even think about that anymore. But now that I think about it, I'm like, that was a lot.
That was a lot. Oh, and so how did you learn how to do the things?
So I'm pretty good with computers, luckily. So the KOA is amazing as well. They have really great training and help support. So they flew someone to the KOA to train me. So there was someone here for 3 or 4 days just to go through the campground, go through showing me how the software works, etc. The old owner was still here helping as well. She had moved out of the house that we moved into, and she moved into her motorhome, and they stayed on the campground for a couple of days. Not long, but enough to, when I'm like, where would I find this? She's like, oh, it's under the cupboard in that thing behind that box,
Like you never would have,
No, I'd never find that without her telling me where it was, yeah. Or at least not quickly anyway. But yeah, so I had a lot of help from KOA is an amazing franchise to work with. They are so great, so involved in helping, so supportive. They've got great training, so that really helped.
That's huge. Because I think, if somebody buys a franchise, that can be a disaster where oh my gosh, I had no idea going in that company was going to be like this, to be partner. It's like you're married to them, and it's they're stealing everything. They're not helping. They're, So that's wonderful to know that they're actually very supportive of their franchisees. Because that,
one of the things they like to say is do you bleed yellow? You know, it's like, are you really like a believer in KOA? And so we, you know, I definitely within that first year, I was bleeding yellow because I really was like, wow, you guys really helped me be successful.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then do you find like as you're going, do you still need their help with a lot of stuff, or is it just kind of like, are they just kind of like, oh, Jackie's got this, we don't need to do anything now?
No, they're not. They definitely are not a micromanaging kind of company, which is great because that would drive me bonkers.
Yeah.
But I would say we probably email KOA. I have a manager who she's worked for me for 10 years. So like, she's like my life, you know, I couldn't even figure out life without her anymore. But between me or her, I'd say one of us is emailing KOA at least once a week, just with a, hey, is there any way that we could change? Because KOA does their whole software. They program their own Campground software.
Oh.
And so we can then, which is great about it, we can be like, hey, you know, it would be great if the software did this. You know, and so there's at least once a week, Sabrina and I are either asking for like, this is something strange we can't figure out, or hey, can we update this, make the software do this, or, you know, or just asking, you know, like during COVID, camping changed dramatically.
Yeah. What happened then?
The booking window for camping went from people maybe booking a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ahead of time to booking 8 months ahead of time.
Oh, boy.
So everybody at Canada, I don't know about the Americans, but everybody in Canada, because we couldn't leave,
Yeah.
you know, and so you couldn't fly anywhere, you couldn't go anywhere. The only real vacationing and recreation people could do was camping.
Yeah.
So people were like, the sites were in such high demand that people were booking 6, 8, 10 months ahead of time.
Wow.
And so it was like, okay, this is, you know, kind of crazy that we're like looking ahead now, because there's reports in our software that you can see, well, how much do I have in reservations on my books for the next year? So I'm constantly looking at the year ahead. And all of a sudden my year ahead was increasing like dramatically because people were booking so far in advance. Well, then COVID sort of passed, right? It's no longer the concern that it was for those couple of years. And so the booking window has shrank again. And so that's information I've reached out to KOA and just said, can you give me some knowledge as to what the booking window is kind of looking like? Because I don't want to panic if I get to a month ahead and my May reservations don't look as full as they're not full yet.
Right.
You know, I don't want to panic and go, oh, have I done something wrong? You
right.
know, because
what's normal? Yeah.
Exactly.
What's the new normal? The new normal. Right?
Exactly. That's it. The new normal. And so that it's really helpful that they run all of that data. They analyze everything, and then they can provide me with everybody, the booking window across the board, every KOA is just shortened now. So don't panic when you don't see as many reservations on your book. Hopefully, you know, camping is down a little bit after COVID. Everybody could start doing other things. So camping wasn't the one and only. Still popular, but not the one and only, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild. Yeah, I think there was that pent-up demand. People want to go to Europe. They want to go to the islands, whatever.
Places that they now can. Yeah, and feel safe doing it.
Sure.
Because for years, people just didn't feel safe traveling.
Right.
Whether they were allowed to or not allowed to. Yeah.
Exactly. But I wonder too. So I know the same thing was here. I kept hearing like, you know, camping, like you can't find a spot. It's, you know, I think Colorado, it's still like that, like good luck finding a camping spot. I don't even know, you know, and here too. But I think I'm wondering too, if people like went camping and then they're like, maybe they didn't used to camp. Now they camped and they had a really good experience and they're like, oh, you know, I think that may have spawned like some lifelong campers, maybe not the volume, but I'm sure you're
right. Yeah. Cause the trailer sales alone were crazy during COVID because again, people had all this spare money because nobody was spending it on going out, right? You couldn't eat at restaurants as often or as many people couldn't go out in groups and things like that. And so the spending definitely changed and the trailer sales were crazy during COVID.
Yeah. Now the resales are crazy now.
There's so many, I know, but there were a lot of people that did try camping for the first time. And so while they may not be the camping 8 times a season, but even if they're now we do like to camp and we're going to do 1 or 2, that's just added a new camping market that we didn't have before.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild. And I love that. I mean, KOA is like a gentle entry too. It's not like, oh, I'm going primitive camping.
You don't have to carry your canoe on your back and portage of, 5 lakes over. Yeah.
Fight some bears, make a place. I mean,
I mean, I don't even have raccoons at my campground.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's wild. Do you have like a sign, no raccoons, and they obey?
There are some skunks around.
Oh no.
But they're friendly, and it's wildlife. When people say, oh, there's a skunk, I'm like, well, you are camping, you are camping.
Oh. So you often, I have, at least because of the circles that, like I'm in some camping groups and glamping groups and all this kind of stuff. And so people will report back like some of the crazy reviews that they'll get. People will be like, there was a bug in my tent.
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta be kidding. Do you have like crazy complaints like that sometimes? Or?
We do. I mean, in all honesty, most of my campers are repeat campers. We get a lot of the same campers that come back weekend after weekend or year after year. So they know our campground. But there are the odd camper that we get that are like first-time campers or new to camping. And so, they'll be like, oh, well, why did you close your pool at 9? I'm like, because it's dark and it's not safe. It's like, sorry, and or definitely the bugs. It's like, you're outdoors. There are bugs. Like, do you want me to put a dome over the world? I don't know what you want from me. Like, it's like,
you're in their home right now.
Exactly. Like, we're the ones interfering. Yeah.
That's so funny. I mean, we haven't had
Sabrina definitely, I can't remember any off the top of my head, but Sabrina has definitely fielded some really strange, like, are you joking?
I've heard things like the wind blew too much. I mean, it's like, okay.
Well, I know it's too cold or it's too hot. It's like, okay, well, I'm not, I'm not the controller of the weather.
We aim to please, but we have limits on what we can actually do.
I'm doing my best. Yeah. Let me get out there with chanting and doing some rain dancing and see if we can make it happen for you. I don't know. People are funny.
Oh my gosh. All right. Now, and you're seasonal, right? You don't have winter campers, do you?
So we open around approximately May 1st and we close approximately the end of October. Yeah.
That's so good. That's still a pretty sizable.
6 months. Yeah. About 26 weekends we're open.
Wow. And then what do you do for the rest of the year?
So I do a couple of different things. I did, just before COVID, I had bought a restaurant. So
oh my.
Very stupid idea. It was really bad timing.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, horrible to own a restaurant.
And that's like the hardest business ever, from what I hear.
I learned so much though. Like, I thought I learned a lot running a campground. Man, running a restaurant, the pressure of timing, like people want hot food now. Oh, and camping is like, they're way more chill and relaxed when they're camping, that they don't really bitch and complain. But yeah, owning a restaurant was probably one of my stupidest things I ever tried doing, but probably one of the funnest. Like I enjoyed being in that kitchen tossing wings. It was a wing restaurant.
Okay.
And I think that was one of my favorite places to be, was in the kitchen. There were a couple of cooks there and we all just got along so well that we could like throw things at each other and catch them and know, like, we just got into a groove. It was really great. So I did do that, but then I sold that. Currently I'm doing a couple of, I always have side businesses going. So I'm still in a direct selling, sales type health business. And I also, a couple of years ago, I have a longtime family friend who owns a bunkie company. And
what's that?
Like bunkies. They're,
like the cabins?
Yeah, like little cabins.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So his company is called The Bunkie Company. And so he had designed a bunkie, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. I don't even know exactly the length of time, but a long time ago. And then afterwards, I ended up buying the campground. He's like, oh, you should buy some of these bunkies and put them on, because I do have cabins on my campground.
Yeah.
And I said, well, but I'm a family campground, and the models that you have they only ever fit 2 people. Like, they're small.
Right.
His business model is not needing a permit. So they're small enough square footage that you don't have to apply for a permit.
Yes. Oh, I've been on his site. I'm like looking at it right now. I've been on that site. Those are so cool.
Gorgeous bunkies. But so when I told him that I'll probably never buy, like, I love you, buddy, but I'll never buy your bunkies. He actually designed a model that has a loft bed for people like me that need at least 4 people to be able to sleep.
Yes.
My families, I hardly ever have couples come. It's usually always people with kids. And so I need at least 3 to 4 to 5 sleeping units.
Yeah.
So he designed 2 units that have a loft bed so that it can sleep 4 people. So I purchased a couple of those and put them on my campground, and they're doing really well. And so, you know, he just said, like, since you are constantly talking about these with people, are you interested at all in supporting, because you're really good with people, do you want to do some sales for me? So I also do sales for the Bunkie Company.
That is so cool.
So I do that all year long,
Yeah.
but in the wintertime, that does at least give me something that I'm not just sitting around twiddling my thumbs.
Right. Yeah. Because I would get, you know, short days. It's dark. It's cold. That would be
Absolutely.
gotta have something.
Yeah. No, that wouldn't be fun. Yes. So, but again, and I'm always open, you know, to other things. So whatever God has planned, he'll bring it to me at the right time.
For sure. And I love too. So like you've got these bunkies on site. So people are like looking at, you know, like, hey, here's the demo. Right?
That's it.
So
like,
great.
So if anybody is from Ontario, like I sell a lot of them to California. And like Arizona and stuff, but any of the people, because the Muskokas, the cottage country around Ontario, that's the other big market, is the cottagers. And so if they want to see what it looks and feels like inside, I'm like, just come here.
Come on over. Yeah. Spend a night.
Exactly. Yeah. And try camping while you're at it.
Exactly.
Sell a cottage. Yeah. Just kidding.
That is so wild. Oh my gosh. All right. So, I mean, you're in nature a lot, I would imagine. Like it.
Yeah.
To be honest, though, I would imagine that it's actually possible to spend the whole day in your office and go, oh, wow, I didn't get outside. Does that ever happen to you?
Luckily not too often, because of the fact that my office is in my house, but the KOA campground office is outside in a different building.
Okay.
So for me to go down there, now I have staff and they're amazing. I've had the same staff for years, so they know what they're doing. I don't have to go down. But one of my biggest philosophies really is that, like, if I make my staff feel like family, they'll feel supported and loyal to me in return.
Yeah.
So I make sure I go down and see whoever's working at least once a day to go and just catch up. How are you? You know, not talk about campground, talk about them. Like, how are they doing? How's their, you know, whatever. So I at least walk or drive the golf cart from my house down to the office. So that's at least getting outside. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm outside enjoying nature.
Right. You're just passing through it, right?
Yeah. But I do spend a lot. I'm also a really big Pokemon fan. So the app Pokemon Go. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've heard of it, but I would never have pegged you for a Pokemon girl.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I have Pokemon tattoos. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I try to at least walk my campground at least once a day, catching Pokemon, and so
that's so fun.
So that's
so
my
fun.
Like, okay, I've been looking at numbers, or I've been crunching things, or I've been trying to update like marketing emails too much. My brain needs a break. Yeah. Okay, it's time to go play some Pokemon, and I'll, you know, there's a couple of other people. My boyfriend, he plays it, and one of my staff who's more like family. As I said, most of them are, but he actually lives here at the campground with us. And he's in our seasonal section. And so he also plays. And so the three of us just go for a walk at least once a day.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I love that. That is probably the most creative thing that I've heard as far as people like finding a way to get outside.
Right. Yeah. Pokemon. Yep. It's our video game. Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, so I'm not so really funny. Off the screen per se, because I'm walking around with
That's
my
true.
phone, you know,
That's true.
But we are doing the walk, so I'm getting some physical activity, and you know, and I get to like keep an eye on that there's garbage on the ground, you know, I can pick that up or whatever. So how
many acres is your place?
It's 50.
Oh boy. All right. That's a lot.
But the campground footprint is only on about 25. And then there's some fields for the rest of it that a farmer rents and grows like soy or hay or something.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool then.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't imagine like trying to, so we have 35 acres, but most of it is wooded hills, and you could hike it. Definitely. I just haven't, right? You know, we'll need to put some trails and stuff like that.
And so we have some, cause ours was all originally wooded like hills and stuff, but we've put some trails through there. So, and lots of people walk them.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm thinking we put some benches in there. So, you know,
we put benches and we put disc golf through the
smart.
Yeah.
That's really,
so
really
people
clever.
Can play that if they're into Frisbee golf.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Now, what do your kids think? They're getting to grow up in a campground. This is a very unique thing. Are you homeschooling? Or do they? I have
Yeah,
so
so
many
the kids are
questions.
homeschooled. Because we originally thought that would keep spending our winters in California, we
Right.
had decided to homeschool right from the get-go when the kids were young. Um, and now I'll be honest with you, I have not been able to afford to go back to California since. And then
Yeah.
now we've since been divorced, so that's
Right.
not happening anyway. Jason had gone back to visit some family and stuff a couple of times, but as a family, we hadn't. So I mean, if we can get away, and we do try to, like, we're taking them to the Great Wolf Lodge in January for
Nice.
a couple of days, so we do try to at least get them somewhere. And now Jason, like, their father has moved to Florida,
Oh,
so
wow.
they can go and visit him in the winter
Yeah.
times and not need to worry about, like, taking them out of school and stuff.
Right. Oh,
But
that's so
yeah, I
good.
mean, my older son is more of a homebody. He tends to be like the introvert type. So if there's a group of people that, like a family come to visit or friends or whatever, he'll go outside and play with them, but he'd much prefer to be alone. My youngest one is totally an extrovert and needs a ton of attention and people. And so it's really nice that he can just go out and play with kids whenever the campground, as long as the
Yeah.
campground's open, he can just go out and play with kids anytime he wants. So
That's really cool. I mean,
yeah,
bring the kids in, right?
yeah,
So that
totally.
is really awesome. Do they love, like, I mean, they don't know a different life.
They don't. They've been here since they were really little, so this is all they know.
Yeah.
So I don't think, like, I think as they get older, they'll be happy to work the campground. Like, that's
Yeah.
just what they know is like their life here, If I'm like, hey guys, I need you to, like, run some garbage to the back, they both know how to drive the golf cart, they'll be taught how to drive the tractor for the wagon ride. And
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah.
That's really, really awesome. I love that. Um, what a great life, you
I
know?
mean, they seem to be happy, so yeah.
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 And then too, like, circling back to that lady that you met just on this random trip, and she's like, "This is a great life,"
That's it.
like
Yeah, it's
she really
funny.
said it.
That family, I think, is now up to owning 6 campgrounds.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know, like, they're really,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
That's
I mean, they're,
hardcore.
because they have, like, their whole family involved, like her husband's father and mother and brother and sister, and so among them as a family, they all own a bunch.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, like, people, like, really can make, a really good living lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I've heard the return on investment, if you buy a campground, in the long run, it's better than investing in RRSPs or something.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. So we look at getting investors, and I'm like, the cash over cash return on these things. Like, so our next thing is, we're putting in the geodesic domes.
Yeah.
It's basically 50K all in US. And I'm like,
Okay.
all right, hey, Mr. Investor, how about you give me 50K?
Yeah.
And then for the next, like, we'll get it up and running. We'll do all the work. You can use it
Yep.
whenever you want, send people
Yep.
if you want, whatever. And then we'll give you 25% of revenue for your place until you've doubled your money.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, right. So I keep talking about it with people, and I'm like, we still have to wait. The county has not made their rules and regs yet. They were
Right.
supposed to be up in December, and they needed an extension. I'm like, of course you did. It's government. They take forever. So
Yeah.
hopefully they'll do that. If not, then we might revisit the bunkie idea. Actually,
Yeah.
and I'll talk to you. Or
Absolutely.
just building like normal cabins. You could
Yep.
build something as small as 315 square feet, and they're fine. So I'm like, all right.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just, but it's like wild thinking about,
I
the
know, the
returns on these
regulations.
things.
Yeah.
The regs. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's annoying. But the return is like so potentially lucrative that
Yeah. Well,
wonderful.
and for you, because I mean, like, my hydro bill alone is over $50,000 a year, because most of mine that come here bring their own trailer, right?
Yeah.
And they're using power. So that's the key really to running this kind of business, is figuring out, how do I reduce my expenses so I actually am earning a profit every year?
Right. Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And the
But
utilities
the
and all those
campground
things.
obviously is still an asset that in the long run, if I ever sell it or when I sell it,
Yeah.
There's the recoup there, but
Right.
each year making sure that I'm like balancing my expenses with my income
Yeah.
so that I'm like, okay, the wage is going up and hydro's going up and everything's costing more. And it's
Yeah.
like trying to make sure, because I don't want to keep raising my rates too much, that it's like, well, now people
Now it's
can't
this,
camp as
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Now it's
Now
just
it's
exclusive.
a luxury instead of like,
Right.
I mean, I've had families that would camp here 10 weekends a year,
Wow.
but then now you get to the point where if I'm raising my rates too much, that
Yeah.
I know I need to cover my bills,
Yeah.
but if I'm raising them even too much, then it's like, well, now people can only camp 4 times a year or two
Right.
times a year, and so trying to make sure
Yeah.
that I'm supporting the campground's needs with the campers' needs to make
Yeah.
sure that we're all still getting what we need.
What you need. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's watching the numbers. I think that's
That's
a,
it. I
it's a
mean,
huge
I just
thing.
have to pay attention to like when minimum wage after COVID, when minimum wage started going up in Ontario, Canada, it goes up every single year by a bunch,
Oh,
like our minimum wage is now up to like almost $18 an hour.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets, that'll pinch.
Well, and I mean, I have 16 staff in the summertime. It's not just, me and one person, I've got
Yeah,
people that are doing all the garbage and doing the site cleanups because I want to make sure
yeah,
when a camper shows up, that site looks like it was never camped on. So I
that's
don't want to see
beautiful.
somebody else's old dog poop. I don't want
Yeah,
garbage on the site. I don't want there to be old fire logs in the fire.
right.
We clean all that out, we really try to make it feel like you get here and maybe this is the first camper that's ever been in that site,
That's so
we
good.
we
That's a great
try.
advice too. That's what I'm gonna totally take that because
Well,
that's,
for glamping, I
yeah,
mean, if it depends
yeah,
again on who your camper and your target is going to be. My
right.
target is a KOA camper, has some expectations of what it's going to look like when they arrive,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
so we try really hard to keep fresh flowers in the gardens and things like that. So
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
that's so great. Man. All right. So what is next for you? Like, long term on
Well,
this, what do
yeah,
you
I
want to
mean,
do?
KOA is really just paying attention to what the changes are, especially now my kids are older. So what are they into that
Yeah.
I can add some new facilities to my campground at any point?
Yeah.
Constantly, how do I upgrade? We notice a lot more people are camping with pets. I mean,
Mhm.
they always have, but I'm now paying attention to it. I've never been a huge dog person. I've never had a dog. But now paying attention to campers with dogs, that we've put a fence around one of our sites so that they can let
Mm,
their dog off leash just to roam in their
nice.
site. And so I think we're going to be focusing on some more what we call paw friendly sites.
Oh,
So we're going to do some of that, which is not very costly, just to add a fence and some
yeah,
dog toys or something. So it doesn't cost too much, but it can then create a different experience for the campers.
for sure. Oh, yeah.
So I think just little for 2025, because of the divorce, it was costly. So
Yeah.
my life is very tight for 2025.
Yeah.
But I'm just probably some small upgrades, things like that, and then relooking starting again in 2026 of what's the next thing. Like we redid the playground, put in a zip line a couple of years ago.
Ooh.
We haven't, and we added a basketball court the year after that, and so just figuring out what's the next amenity we need to
Yeah.
put in.
That's so great. That's so good. And I love that you have, the support of KOA, you have a network
Absolutely.
of other people, what's going well, what is not working so well. And
Yep.
that's really smart.
Yeah,
So
so
cool.
other than that, there's not that much changing at the KOA. Still, of course, enjoying the bunkie sales, trying to get as many of those out into the world, because those are really, while I benefit as a commercial property, I got benefit and some income out of them. Most of the people that buy these are, people who will put them in a backyard
Oh,
for
yeah.
an extra office,
An ADU
that
or,
they
oh,
can
yeah.
work from
Yeah.
home, things
Right.
like that. So just trying to make sure that we're supporting the people who need them for those reasons, not just a commercial, income.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh, that's
Yep.
really cool.
Yeah, so that's my 2025
I
funkies and
love it.
camping. Yep.
I love it. Well, if you ever get time off
Yeah, I
and want to
know.
come to Tennessee, once we're set, I would love to have you.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because I might have to go because the kids obviously need to go down and see Jason. And Jason's been borrowing my car for a couple of months. So I need to go back, get the car, and probably take them down for a visit. So I'll be driving through Tennessee. So
There you go.
on my
Oh,
way
wow.
home, I'll try and stop in.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's so cool. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. This is really cool. It was a
Thank
treat for
you.
me.
It was fun.